Andy McClusky is the lead singer and bassist of the iconic group OMD and has given us the gift of such tunes as Joan of Arc, Electricity, Enola Gay, and of course the dopamine hit we are featuring today, If You Leave, from the magical Pretty in Pink. He's touring Australia in Feb 2025 and you can get your tickets from destroyalllines.com. Sounds like a sinister website. And frankly, I'll see you there. ChrissieCasters, please welcome Andy McClusky from OMD. Hi, Andy.
Hello, nice to talk to you. Thank you.
Oh, gosh, it's such a thrill that you've agreed to be part of this little mini snack-size series called Dopamine Hits, where I talk about the songs that are on my playlist that the minute they start, I get a rush of great feelings. And, of course, If You Leave is one of them. The minute that drum beat kicks, I feel alive. Can you tell me how this song came about?
Well, I mean, it was a remarkable piece of storyline, actually. We were specifically asked by John Hughes to write a song for Pretty in Pink, for the prom scene right at the end. He was very Anglophile. He liked his English music. So we went down to Paramount Studios. We saw them filming it. They said exactly what they wanted. We went home and we wrote the song, and we came back to America with the song ready to mix, and he said, bit of a problem, actually. We've changed the end of the movie and your lyrics don't work. We wrote a song called Goddess of Love, actually, Chrissie. He couldn't use it. He said, does your tour start for another 2 days? Have you got time? Can you write me another one today? We've just flown into LA ready to mix. So we wrote If You Leave in 1 day in the studio, totally from scratch. And we got really lucky. We got really lucky with that one. But yeah, that was a really crazy story. We had to throw away the first song we wrote.
Okay, I've got so many questions. With that process, did you view rushes of the film so far to get the vibe?
Not at all, no, because they were still filming it when we were writing the song. And the only thing that John said to us was, it just has to be 120 beats per minute because we filmed the people dancing at the prom to Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds, which was in the song the year before, The Breakfast Club. So that's, he said, just same tempo, that's it. So, of course, when we did finally see the edit, we were invited to the premiere at the Mann's Chinese Theatre on Hollywood Boulevard, red carpet treatment, everything. It was amazing. And we waited and we waited. And up it comes on the screen and we're like, okay, we did 120 beats a minute. Who edited this movie? Because nobody's dancing on the frickin' beat. So the only parameter we were given didn't seem to matter.
It. I think this is interesting because I did read a little bit about Pretty in Pink and they had to change the ending. Initially, Molly Ringwald's character, who I believe is called Andy as well, but with an IE, ends up with Ducky, who's
Correct.
the kind of, nerdy good guy. And the audiences didn't like that, so they changed it that she ended up with, the broody, moody rich guy, Blaine, hence the misfit of Goddess of Love, I guess.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, this is it. The test audience, the teenage girl said, no, Ducky's her friend. She should end up with the good-looking guy. So they had to rework the ending. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened.
Wow. So when you're coming to Australia, how long has it been since you've been here? I've read alternating stories. It says one time this is the first Australian tour, but I'm sure you've been here before.
No, we have. You were just a baby last time we were there. It was 38 years ago. Scary, huh?
Oh, you're very kind, Andy. You're very kind, Andy. Wow. So this is going to be amazing. What is it like to be, living your whole amazing life over on the other side of the world, and then you come to a place like Australia, which feels so remote and far away, and yet we are all going to be there heaving in the audience, knowing every single word to your tracks.
This is the amazing thing, is that obviously, yes, I grew up in England. We have toured Australia twice before in the mid-'80s, but yeah, we're going to come back having not played for 38 years, but we are blessed that so many of our songs are still played on the radio in Australia. And as you say, the tracks like If You Leave and Enola Gay, everybody seems to know them. And so it's these are great calling cards to have. When you come visiting and you go, well, I've got this song and this song and this song, and this one, people go, come on in. So, yeah, I mean, we are so excited. It's been way too long, so we can't wait to come back next year.
What's it like knowing that the skills that you have bring so much joy to millions of people still every day?
Do you know what? Again, I'll use the word, it's a blessing. You've got to remember here, Paul Humphreys and I were a pair of working class kids from the wrong side of the River Mersey in Liverpool. And we were doing a hobby. We were inspired by German music. It was just our hobby. We never thought we were ever going to make a living out of it. And then we just had a series of lucky things happen to us. And the next thing you know, after daring to do one gig with a stupid name like Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, it was just a dare for one gig. 18 months later, we're having our first hit single, and things just exploded. So it's amazing. But you know what? It wasn't everything we ever predicted or wanted. But when people come up to me and say, I'm sorry to bother you, but I just wanted to say that this song you wrote means something to me because, you know, it was my first song at my wedding, or I played it at my father's funeral or something. You know, you just realize something I did that lasts 3.5 minutes is indelibly in people's lives. It doesn't change the world, but it made a difference. And it's an amazing feeling.
It is truly extraordinary, isn't it? How do you choose where those dopamine hits go in the set list?
You have to spread them out, but because you don't want, you know, you got to drop a few hits in first and then take it on a journey. I mean, we are fortunate that we have quite a lot of hits, so it's not like people are waiting for the hit and we're saving it for the encore, you know. So we will, you'll get some early ones and some middle ones, and all I'll say is my dancing still hasn't improved for the Maid of Orleans, Joan of Arc, so there will be a slow one immediately after that, but it'll still be a hit.
Listen, enough of that negative self-talk. We live for that dance routine. Don't you worry about that. Now, speaking of your the other member of the group, there is a third member called Winston. Who is he, and is he coming on tour?
There was a third member. No, Winston is where Paul Humphreys and I should be, behind glass in the Museum of Liverpool. And for those who don't know, Winston is a tape recorder. When we were teenagers and we wanted to play our music, our friends thought it was, well, not music. They were into like Genesis and the Eagles, and they didn't get what we were into. So we had to be a band, and the rest of the band was the tape recorder, because nobody else wanted to play with us. We used to make a joke, actually, that if Lennon and McCartney had had a tape recorder in the 60s, then the other two wouldn't have been in the Beatles. So it was...
It's actually true. They've become obsolete, much like Winston himself.
Yeah, but Winston is actually definitely is in a museum. He was great to begin with, but we'd rather play with real people now that they want to play with us. 1986
was such a massive year. It was, the year I became a teenager, 13 years old. But there were some unbelievable albums released that year. Graceland, Licensed to Ill over in America by the Beastie Boys, Peter Gabriel's So, which is still one of the greatest albums of all time.
Absolutely.
I inhaled this music. Australia in the 80s, you know, without the internet and without, you know, any sort of global communications platform, we felt so far away. And I've always said that, you know, if I could go back to any time, it would be 80s in the UK. I spent all my pocket money on smash hit, magazines and the import ones, very expensive, Andy. What was it like to be amid that amazing cut and thrust of culture and music in Britain in the 80s?
Of course, the crazy thing was that I can only look back now and go, oh, wow, at the time, you were just doing it. You know, and very quickly, our hobby became our job, and it became our normal. You know, I lived in a suitcase. I was traveling around the world. I was doing television and photographs and radio and concerts, and then back in the studio and boom, boom. It was just, your feet never touched the ground, but that became your normal. And I didn't, I finally left home And because previously I was being on top of the pops and then going home to my little box room that was like 6 foot by 7 foot, the room I grew up in. The bed took up half the room. But I said, give me mother, here, can you do me washing? I've got to go to Berlin tomorrow. That was my normal. It was nuts.
And what were the photo shoots like for Smash Hits magazine?
Well, do you know, I'll tell you a funny story, right? One day in 1984, we were doing a photo shoot for Smash Hits, a photographer studio called Eric Watson. We were being interviewed by the guy who was the deputy editor of Smash Hits, who said, this is going to be my last interview because I've got a band and we're going to release a record next month. And we said, oh, good luck. What's the record called? West End Girls. Neil Tennant.
Neil Tennant.
Neil Tennant was interviewing us for Smash Hits in his last interview before he started the Pet Shop Boys. And then, just to make it even more surreal, I walked over to a light box that Eric had and I switched it on and went, oh, she's cute. Who's that? And he went, just some dancer from New York who thinks she can sing. Madonna. Just before she released her first single.
Madonna.
Yeah. So this was 1984. This was what it was like. Neil Tennant was interviewing us. We were looking at some photographs by this girl who was called Madonna, who we never heard of. But it was just a blur. Every day was just another day like that.
Unbelievable. God, I could talk to you forever. Thank you so much for joining us, Andy McClusky. If you want to go and see OMD, do not miss them. They're touring in February. It is going to be an absolute vibe. Get your tickets from destroyalllines.com. They kick off in February in Perth. Andy McClusky from OMD. How do I ever thank you so much?
Come to the gigs and say hello. We cannot wait to play. It's basically we're bringing all the greatest hits down to Australia because we owe it to you because it's been way too long.
I love that. And, you know, always whenever I go to a show and the new stuff comes out, I call it the ciggy break because that's where you go to get your hot dog and chips and your drink. I love that you understand that.
Listen, you know, the songs have been good to us. Don't mess around. Play them exactly how people remember them. Give them every song that was a hit because the songs have been good to us. We need to be good to the songs and treat the audience with respect. So come and see the gigs and we'll have a great party.
Amen, Andy McClusky. Thank you so much for joining me, and you go off to bed with your cup of Horlicks and your flannelette pyjamas, please.
Thank you, and I'll see you next year. Bye.